YouTube, what the crap's going on? Welcome back to Total War Warhammer 2 for another battle. This one between Clan Angrund and the Greenskins, and this is an ancient grudging indeed. We've got Zero versus Sean, and Zero said that he called this a Toilet Lord matchup. I don't know if he's referring to Grom as well, but maybe just referring to the Rune Lord, and he did put him on the Anvil as well. Yeah, the Rune Lord, in my opinion, used to be much more dangerous whenever he had a direct damage spell. Now, don't get me wrong, the ability to slow units is still very important for the dwarves, and so it doesn't make the Rune Lord, in my opinion, totally useless, but he is kind of weak in terms of melee or anything else, and you have to pay a hefty price to be able to have that slowing ability. He is supported by Felix, though, which I like this pick because the Rune Lord is going to need plenty of healing, as his melee capability is rather subpar. There's going to be some Longbeards guarding a cannon and a Goblobber. I love the Goblobber in a matchup against the Greenskins. It is devastating to leadership and causes massive damage. I like how the dwarves are prepared for rear charges from potentially skulking Skulkers. And that's some Dwarf Warriors back here. And then some Miners with blasting charges to be able to throw their stuff in where they get the opportunity. Again, really like the positioning of the dwarves overall. I also like the fact that they're using gyrocopters. I think these units get very underplayed by a lot of dwarf players. It is the only mobility, so to speak, that the dwarves have, and they are actually quite good in the right situations, especially in numbers, and I feel like maybe that's the mistake. Sometimes people just don't bring them in the numbers necessary to do the damage needed. You can see the Goblobber having an immediate effect. Now, there are 4 Goblin Rock Lobbers here for the Greenskins, which I don't think in and of itself is necessarily a terrible pick, versus the dwarves. They're armor piercing, they're good range, and you can use it to try and do some damage, but the leadership on them just can't hold up to the Goblobber, and unless they can kill it quickly, the Goblobber will eventually just get them. Because whenever they do take a hit, the goblins in the crew are going to really suffer. Here, see, they've got a plus 16 leadership for a moment from Grom, so it'll help, but even with that, look how bad it damages their leadership. The Goblobber is also very accurate just because it is a Regiment Renowned and it comes at tier 9. There are some Orc Air Boys. Let's take a look at the front here. We've got some Orc Boys, Night Goblins, more Orc Boys. We've got some Savage Orcs here on the flank. Savage Orcs, interesting pick. They are going to be good against light armor, but nothing about the dwarves is light armor. We do have a giant River Troll Hag here as well, and she's got Spirit Leech, which is probably a good call. The dwarves can't heal anything. And then there's Grom on the Chariot. I think that Grom on a Chariot's probably not a bad pick versus the Dawi, honestly, since they hate Chariots. But I would have expected to see more Snotling Wagons and Skulkers in a build against the Dawi, to be honest. There is a unit of Crimson Killas that was hidden back here. It gets spotted by the Gyrocopter, but I like that it's being hidden. Don't allow it to be taken out early. That is the big risk with these units. And Elite Infantry in general, honestly, probably needs a little bit of rebalancing. In Warhammer, I think it's one of the things that hopefully they could fix going into Warhammer 3. I feel like Elite Infantry, although it does sometimes play an important role in the game, very often it is just snuffed out from the beginning because how easy it is to get your money's worth out of magic and missiles against Elite Infantry. Just very, very easy. Now, I think in campaign, Elite Infantry is great. I use it a bunch, and it makes a lot of sense, so no real complaints from that standpoint. But in multiplayer, I have to admit that Elite Infantry is typically fairly disappointing. Now, we'll see whether or not this Black Orc can break that mantra here. But like I said, I mean, you do occasionally see Elite Infantry do well. Like, remember I played that battle against Indy recently, and he had a pretty good performance, I think, out of some Elite Infantry. But again, it's very situational whenever that does happen. So the dwarves are dominating from range right now. Not a terrible surprise. The the Goblobber did take some damage from the Goblin Rock Lobbers and is still under fire. However, it's doing its job really nicely, and it's going to force the Greenskins into an unfavorable attack. And the Goblobber is just absolutely fantastic in terms of what it can do at range. I highly recommend it whenever you're in an artillery duel. It combines with a cannon very nicely, in fact. And if there's any Elite Infantry, the Goblobber will do them terrible damage. Now, I also like this. That Spirit Leech is still using on the Rune Lord is being used on the Gyrocopters, and that's a pretty good defense against the Gyrocopters. It's going to do some good damage to them. And it has a better chance of killing a unit model than something like Fate of Buna, for obvious reasons. So Spirit Leech would be a much better pick against Gyrocopters than something like Fate of Buna. You need a larger unit size for Buna to be the better pick, and it's also a lot more magic. Ooh, yeah, see, I was looking for a stray hit to get those Morgrum's Mangy Marauders again. Look what it does to the leadership. Just crushes the leadership, those units. Now the River Troll Hag is going to be the object of affection. These Brimstone guns are going to absolutely rip her a new one. If it weren't for the Orc Error Boys providing some fire here, that Hag would be dead very, very quickly, and probably still will be. Whew, yeah, look at that. So again, don't ignore gyrocopters, and the Steam variant is actually quite good if you feel like you're going to end up being up against some infantry blobs. Then the Steam variant of the gyrocopter is extremely effective. So don't, again, underestimate it. Some Skulkers did manage to get in here and get the Miners with blasting charges, and now they're going to make a run, it looks like, more towards the center of the Dawi formation here. And the Dawi slow to react here, maybe busy with the gyrocopters. They're going to get into the Slayers, and I think this is actually probably the last target that those Skulkers really want to fight. It may have just been because they were following Miners with blasting charges. Yeah, rest in pieces, Skulkers. But by absorbing the blasting charge volley, that is actually probably at least somewhat helpful for the rest of the boys. Seeing the Greenskins are going to have to move up and fight. It's just the Dwarves are temporarily out of formation because of the attack of the nasty Skulkers. Like I said, I would have expected to see more Skulkers. They are very useful versus the Dwarves if you can keep their leadership intact. It doesn't hurt to support them with like a naked Goblin Big Boss or something, like running with them just to help give them the extra leadership, because their leadership is poor. You see the Dwarves here, they know that they're not being outflanked anymore, and so they'll leave a minimal defense behind here on their cannon. It looks like the Goblobber is out of ammunition, but did a very nice job. Felix is going to move up to support as well. And you got the Gyrocopters for a little bit of aerial support, though they're going to have to watch out. There are some Error Boys, and the Mangy Marauders are armor-piercing as well. So just something that the Dwarves are going to have to keep an eye on. Right now they're under fire, but now it looks like that has changed over to the Rune Lord. Not really sure that the archers will be very effective against the Rune Lord. And honestly, Felix will start to heal it whenever it gets into combat. Let's see what Grom does. You better watch out for the Giant Slayers. Definitely not where he wants to be. Now he gets hit with the Master Rune. That's going to happen at some point, and then he's going to get chewed up by these Brimstone guns. So yeah, this is definitely a Chariot killing move right here. Chariots are really only able to avoid Brimstone guns with their speed and ability to dodge. And when they get hit by the Master Rune, though, I mean, they are just sitting ducks to this type of thing. So that is a good play by the Dwarves here. And Grom is going to be particularly vulnerable to the flaming ammunition coming off of the Brimstone guns because of his regenerate ability. The Greenskins don't possess a lot of armor piercing here, so even with their overwhelming numbers, they're going to struggle to cut through the Longbeards. Longbeards are terrible on offense, but they're actually really good at defense. It's like their only redeeming quality. I say that leadership and defense. Honestly, I think Dwarf Infantry needs a rework as well, so they can actually play a little differently, but I don't know, maybe they'll throw them off balance. I think Longbeards are horribly disappointing, to be honest, especially the Great Weapon. Like, if you don't change the standard Longbeards, fine. But I feel like the Dwarf Warriors with Great Weapons and Longbeards with Great Weapons are just awful. Like, absolutely awful for their price range. So we are going to see Felix in here in melee, which, again, should help the Rune Lord, but the Rune Lord's actually under a lot of fire here. It's having some impact with the archers. Grom, though, has got to really watch it, because those gyrocopters are looking to shoot his immensity, and they are going to be very effective when they do shoot him. And by keeping him out of the fight, that is really denying the Greenskins a much-needed advantage here. And now we're going to see the Crimson Killas coming up. Now, they have been under artillery fire. When they approach, you can see their bodies kind of strewn apart here. Then there's another cannon hit. So again, look at this. This is just the downside of elite infantry. First of all, these guys are slow. If this is what the Greenskins call a run, then these boys need a little more exercise. But yeah, I mean, look what the cannon has done. It's like almost halved their hit points just on the way over here to the battlefield. And that was even with the Greenskin player playing very safe with them. And then look, the gyrocopters turn in and give them a couple of volleys too. And the Crimson Killers are just going to get absolutely neutered on the way to this fight. Now, Grom finally manages to get in and start getting some action here against the Rune Lord, and the Rune Lord is in trouble. Definitely being helped by Felix, but there's only so much help he can get. Rune Lord's getting absolutely savaged at the moment. But the Crimson Killers, like I said, lost over half their HP just getting into the fight, so that was not a good run for them. And now they're going to get hit with Giant Slayers, which will pick away at their armor a little more, and then a Dwarf Warrior just to kind of hold them in position for a while. So the Crimson Killers are effectively going to be neutralized by the Dwarves in this fight. See the Gyrocopters come in and drop their bombs, which is a good call because there's really not any Dwarf infantry up in here. It was just the Rune Lord surrounded by Greenskin infantry, so this was a good play to get the most damage possible out of the Gyrocopters, and they're going to dive bomb in because why not? Just get in here and try and help protect their the Rune Lord. And then I would imagine we could see these other Gyros maybe get after some of the lighter units here in the battlefield. Dwarves are in pretty solid position now, though. Despite Grom still being alive, there's a lot left for the Dwarves. And the Greenskins are going to start losing their leadership. Look at this, the Crimson Killers only got 11 kills. That's rough. That is rough. Let's get a look at this action here, let you all see it. I mean, I really love the use of the Brimstone guns in this fight. Again, people very much underestimate Gyrocopters, in my opinion. It's not like I'm some kind of Dwarf champion or something, but I guarantee you that there's a lot of situations in which I will be using Gyrocopters as the Dwarves. They are extremely helpful. Especially if you're needing to control some cavalry or a flying monster or something else like that. It takes a little micromanagement, but they can be very effective. And in this case, for instance, rather than bringing Rangers or something similar, the Dwarf basically just traded that spend for mobile firepower, and you can make that decision based on what it is you're coming up against. Kind of gives you the options. So a Pyrrhic victory for Clan Angrand here. Very different seeing the Rune Lord. In the past, the Rune Lord would have been ripping apart the Crimson Killers with just the magic damage that used to be the Rune of Wrath and Ruin. This time it was just cannon fire, but again, just goes to show you how easy it is to shred elite infantry for the most part in this game. Even for the Dwarves, who don't technically have magic, they just have runes, still very simple for them to cut their way through that elite infantry. So Sean put his best foot out here, but just wasn't able to do it. Those Brimstone guns are brutal. And honestly, if I were the Greenskins, I would want to have plenty of Spider Rider archers around and maybe support them with the Morgrim's Mangy Marauders, just because the combo of the AP and the poison is a decent way of controlling the speed of the Gyrocopters. You can kind of keep those units close to them at all times. Again, I would have expected to see more light cavalry, snotling wagons, and skulkers. I was a bit surprised to see some of the picks here, but then again, I mean, he was obviously trying to control the Dwarves' ranged with having 4 rock lobbers because they're cheap, but the Dwarves didn't have to spend much different and were easily able to control the range fight just because the Goblobber is so good in these types of fights, especially against Goblin artillery. Just really, really good. Anyway, nice game to both players. Appreciate Zero sending this one in. It was fun, I guess, seeing some Toilet Lord action from Zero, the Rune Lord. What do you all think? Is the Rune Lord a Toilet Lord? I mean, if I'm being honest, he probably kind of is for the Dwarves right now. The Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin, certainly useful, I think, against chariots and stuff, but when it comes to like melee performance or just, you know, all that other kind of stuff, like honestly, Grombrindle is a pick that I really like with the Dwarves. Occasionally, I think Ungrim is a good pick, especially if he gets supported by Felix. Just depends on the situation that you find yourself in. A standard Dwarf Lord can be rather tanky in the right situation as well, though they don't do as much damage as either Grombrindle or Ungrim. But yeah, I guess the Rune Lord probably would be in the toilet, I guess, compared to the rest of the offerings from the Dawing, except for Thorgrim. I think Thorgrim might be the king of the toilet when it comes to Dwarf Lords, though if you disagree with me, let me know. I feel like Thorgrim needs a rework. The way CA has his abilities right now is just stupid, and I don't think that Thorgrim is a very good pick, and I don't think he is structured very well as a Lord. For all the risk that you take when you bring a target as large as Thorgrim and as slow as Thorgrim, his buffs just aren't worth it. They should be better, and make him I think they just need to design him in such a way that he helps the dwarves fight a little differently, like maybe a little more aggressively. And he kind of does that because he does do some attack buffs around him, but it's the High King ability that they ruined with Thorgrim by making it only turn on after your army has basically already been defeated, which is stupid. Like, if you're going to give him buffs at the beginning where it makes a difference. When half of your troops are dead and you start buffing units, it makes very little difference most of the time because they're dead, they're losing, you know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. That would be like the High Elves only turning on martial prowess after the unit is under 50% HP. And it's like, oh, okay, well now I have a few units who are left that are already losing a fight. Great, now we'll buff them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Just for me, it's not the best. But anyway, HeirofCarthage signing out for now. Hope you all enjoyed this. I will see you soon with some more action in Total War Warhammer 2.